It started like any other quiet weekend morning in our neighborhood. Sunlight spilling across trimmed lawns, sprinklers hissing on automatic timers, birds dipping between rooftops. You could almost smell the comfort of routine here. The kind of peace that felt earned after a week of long work hours and loud city noise. I was in my backyard by 10 a.m., setting up the smoker I'd been restoring for months. It was my ritual, my therapy. The smell of hickory chips and marinated ribs drifted through the air, mixing with that faint suburban perfume of fresh-cut grass and sunscreen. My daughter, Emma, was 12, old enough to start eyeing her phone too often, but still young enough to care about helping. She carried paper plates to the picnic table, humming under her breath. My neighbor and best friend Tom brought over a cooler of drinks and leaned against the fence. "Man," Tom said, adjusting his baseball cap. "This right here. This is living. No meetings, no traffic, no HOA drama for once." I laughed softly, flipping a rack of ribs. Don't jinx it. But it was too late, because just as the smoke began to rise, curling lazily above the fence line, I heard the sound I'd come to dread. Heels on concrete, sharp and impatient. When I turned, she was already there, Karen Whitfield, the HOA president, perfectly pressed blouse, clipboard under her arm, and that expression, the one that said she'd already decided you were wrong before you even spoke. Behind her, 2 HOA enforcers in navy blue polos followed like bodyguards. Their shirts read HOA Enforcement Division in bright gold embroidery, as if suburban peacekeeping was a full-time war. She stopped at my gate, tapped her clipboard twice, and called out, "Mr. Lawson, we need to talk about this unauthorized gathering." I blinked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Karen, it's a barbecue. 3 people, my yard, my day off." She flipped a page on her clipboard. "And yet you failed to submit a notice for an open flame activity. HOA Regulation 4.3b, you're in violation," Tom muttered. "Oh, for God's sake." Under his breath, Karen heard him. "Your guests' comments aren't appreciated. This is about safety, Mr. Lawson. These old neighborhoods are at risk for grass fires." I looked around. My yard was bordered by brick and stone. No dry brush, no wind. The only thing combustible in sight was her temper. I smiled politely. "It's just a smoker, not a bonfire. I work with fire safety every day. I know what I'm doing," she smirked. "Is that so? Then you won't mind shutting it down while we document this." Her assistant raised a phone and began taking pictures. My grill, the picnic table, even Emma standing with tongs in her hand. Emma looked confused.
"Dad, are we in trouble?"
I took a slow breath. "Not yet, sweetheart." Karen scribbled something and tore off a pink slip. "An HOA citation. Expect a fine by mail. Continued violations could result in escalation." She turned to leave, her voice carrying over the fence. "And for the record, next time you plan to use fire on HOA property, you'll need approval." My jaw tightened. "HOA property? This is my backyard." She glanced back with a half smile. "It's within the community easement zone. Read your contract, Mr. Lawson." And with that, she walked away, her clipboard bouncing slightly, as if she'd just won something important. I watched her go, feeling a quiet storm rising in my chest. I'd seen people like her before, obsessed with control, addicted to power, convinced they were untouchable because they hid behind printed rules. Tom exhaled. "You gonna let that slide?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the pink citation flapping slightly in the wind. Then I said quietly, "No, Tom, I'm not." Because what Karen didn't know was that the man she'd just fined for fire safety was the county fire marshal. That evening, long after the sun slipped behind the row of oaks lining Maple Crescent Drive, I sat alone in my garage. The grill was cleaned, the food untouched, and the pink HOA citation sat in front of me like a personal insult. I turned it over between my fingers. "Fine, $250, violation, unauthorized fire activity. Issued by HOA President Karen Whitfield." The paper was thin, but it felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than a fine. It carried disrespect. For years, I'd kept my professional life quiet around here. Not because I was hiding, but because this neighborhood was supposed to be my escape. At work, I dealt with chaos, fire investigations, insurance fraud, safety audits, tragedies that left homes reduced to ash. When I came home, I wanted peace. But people like Karen, they didn't understand peace. They mistook kindness for weakness, calm for submission. I stared at my old fire marshal badge sitting on the workbench. It was tucked inside a leather case, worn smooth from years of duty. The state emblem still gleamed faintly under the dim garage light. 15 years in public safety. I'd seen more than enough to know when something smelled like corruption. And this HOA, it reeked of it. Over the past few months, I'd noticed things. The new security lighting at the clubhouse installed without city inspection stickers. A pool heater that never passed code review. Mysterious emergency maintenance fees on our monthly bills. Every sign pointed to an HOA leadership that believed they were beyond accountability. I opened my laptop and pulled up the county fire safety database. Every HOA was required to file annual safety certifications, electrical inspections, fire extinguisher checks, building compliance forms. I typed Maple Crescent HOA, search results, missing records, 2022-2024. I leaned back slowly. So, I whispered, the enforcer doesn't follow her own rules. It wasn't anger that filled me then. It was clarity. She'd weaponized power against ordinary residents, but she'd forgotten one simple truth. Rules cut both ways. I wasn't going to yell, argue, or fight her in public. That would only feed her ego. I'd do what I did best. Follow procedure, gather evidence, and bring the truth to light. Justice doesn't always need noise. Sometimes it just needs patience. At around 10:45 p.m., I called my colleague, Chief Inspector Darnell from the state office. "Hey, Mike," he answered. "Burning the midnight oil again?" I smiled faintly. "You could say that." "Got a community issue I want to run by you?" He chuckled. "Community issue or personal one?" "Both," I said. "You ever heard of the Maple Crescent HOA?" "Sure, nice area." "What about it?" "They've been enforcing local fire codes without permits. And from what I can tell, their clubhouse safety systems are 3 years overdue for inspection." There was a pause. "You serious?" "As serious as a dry Christmas tree next to a candle." Darnell sighed. "Send me the details. I can authorize a spot compliance audit. Make it official," I said quietly. "And Darnell, don't tell them who requested it." He laughed. "You going stealth mode again?" "Let's call it educational outreach." I hung up and closed my laptop. Outside, the night had gone quiet, that rare suburban silence when even the crickets seemed to rest. Emma peeked into the garage door. "Dad, you're still up?" I smiled, closing the badge case. "Yeah, sweetie. Just finishing some work." She walked closer, her small hand resting on my arm. "You're not really in trouble, right?" I shook my head. "No, but someone else might be soon." She tilted her head. "The lady who yelled at you?" I smiled faintly. "Something like that." She hesitated, then whispered, "I heard Mom say you always catch people who break fire rules." I looked down at her, that soft mix of innocence and pride. "That's my job," she grinned. "Then you'll catch her too." And somehow in her voice it didn't sound like revenge. It sounded like faith. As I turned off the garage light, I realized something. Maybe I hadn't chosen this fight. But I damn sure wasn't walking away from it now. Because when people like Karen forget what real authority looks like, justice echoes louder than fire alarms. The next morning was calm, deceptively calm. I woke up before dawn, brewed my coffee, and stood at the kitchen window, watching sprinklers turn the front lawns into glittering mist. The world outside looked perfect. Manicured hedges, American flags, morning joggers waving politely. Perfection, I've learned, is often where corruption hides best. Karen's pink citation was still pinned to the fridge. Emma had drawn a small angry face next to Karen's name with a purple marker. I couldn't help but smile. By 8, I was sitting at my desk reviewing the HOA's public filings. Most residents never bothered to check those, but I'd spent my career swimming through bureaucratic mazes. The deeper I dug, the more twisted it got. The HOA's Community Safety Fund had ballooned from $15,000 to over $60,000 in 2 years, with no listed improvements. The clubhouse had no current occupancy permit. Their quarterly safety inspections, faked signatures. Karen's name appeared on almost every approval form. She wasn't just enforcing the rules, she was writing her own version of them. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. That's the thing about justice. It doesn't work on hunches. It works on evidence. So I started with the basics. I called city records under my official badge ID. This is Fire Marshal Lawson. County Office 27B. I need to verify inspection clearances for the Maple Crescent HOA complex. The clerk paused. Sir, our system doesn't show any completed inspections for that property since 2021. That was 4 years ago. Any pending applications? I asked. No, sir. None filed. I scribbled notes. Appreciate it. Don't mention this call to anyone from the HOA, please. When I hung up, the first chill of adrenaline ran through me. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about responsibility. This HOA wasn't just corrupt. It was unsafe. That evening, I went for a walk around the neighborhood. I'd done it hundreds of times before. Same route, same smiles from the same faces. But tonight, I noticed details I hadn't paid attention to before. The clubhouse's emergency lights didn't work. The pool gate latch was half broken. The outdoor electrical box had no weatherproof seal, a fire risk in any state. And yet Karen was out here writing $250 fines over backyard barbecues. I stopped by Tom's place. His garage door was open, country music playing softly as he worked on his motorcycle. He looked up. You look like a man plotting something righteous. I smiled faintly. Something like that. He tossed me a soda. So what's the plan, Marshal? I took a sip before answering. There's going to be an audit. Official, unannounced. The state's authorizing it. Tom let out a low whistle. Oh, man. Karen's going to lose her mind. She'll lose more than that, I said quietly. I just need her to stay confident, overconfident, until it hits, Tom laughed. You going to tell the neighbors? Not yet, I said. Justice works best when it's quiet at first. Let her think she's winning. For the next 2 days, I watched her pattern. Every morning, she made her rounds like a general inspecting troops, clipboard in hand, lips pursed, sunglasses perched like armor. She fined Mrs. Diaz for unapproved flower colors. She left a warning on Tom's mailbox for visible lawn equipment, and she sent another letter to me, doubling my fine for non-compliance. Almost laughed when I opened it. You could feel her pride through the printed ink. Her power wasn't real, but it had intoxicated her enough to forget one crucial truth. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. Friday afternoon, I got the official call. Lawson, said Chief Inspector Darnell, your audit request's cleared. We're scheduling Maple Crescent HOA for a surprise fire safety inspection Monday morning. You're leading it. A calm settled over me, the kind that comes when you finally know what's about to happen and you're ready for it. Copy that, I said. I'll prepare the paperwork. He hesitated. You're not planning to embarrass anyone, right? I smiled to myself. No, Chief, just planning to teach them what real compliance looks like. That weekend I didn't mention it to anyone. I grilled again, quietly this time. No smoke, no crowd. Just me, Emma, and Tom. At one point, Emma looked up and said, It's weird how quiet everything is. I nodded. Sometimes quiet means the storm's just waiting. And as I watched the sky turn gold over the rooftops, I knew. Monday morning, the storm would hit the HOA like a fire alarm that never stopped ringing. Monday morning came bright and cold, that kind of suburban stillness before the chaos starts. The HOA clubhouse looked freshly polished. Karen must have ordered her staff to make everything shine, not knowing what was about to walk through her doors. I pulled into the parking lot at exactly 8 a.m., city badge clipped to my belt, clipboard in hand. Behind me rolled 2 fire inspection vans and a county compliance vehicle. The engines hummed in unison, like a warning drumbeat echoing down the quiet street. A few neighbors peeked from behind curtains. Word spread fast when official trucks showed up. Karen was already outside, flanked by 2 HOA staffers in matching HOA uniforms. 1 man, 1 woman. They looked nervous. Karen didn't. She looked furious. Her heels clicked sharply as she marched toward me. Excuse me, she barked, waving a pink clipboard like a weapon. You can't just show up here unannounced. I smiled politely. Morning, Ms. Wallace, Fire Marshal Lawson, County Office 27B. We're here for a scheduled audit. Scheduled? Her face twisted. Nobody told me about this. That's what unannounced means, I said evenly. Per State Fire and Safety Regulation Code, HOAs are subject to random inspections when property maintenance funds exceed $50,000. Her staff exchanged glances. Karen blinked fast. Our HOA is perfectly compliant. Then you have nothing to worry about. We walked toward the clubhouse. I could feel her anger radiating behind me like heat from a grill. Inside, my team began spreading out, checking extinguishers, wiring, sprinkler valves. I saw the panic in her eyes grow with every clipboard note and camera flash. It didn't take long. The pool's chemical storage was mislabeled. The emergency exit signs didn't light. 2 extinguishers were 12 months out of date. And the sprinkler system? Completely non-functional. My deputy looked at me and whispered, "This place is a hazard." Karen's voice cracked behind me. You can't cite us for this. This clubhouse has passed every inspection for years." I turned to her slowly. "Who signed those reports?" She hesitated. "The HOA's safety officer." "Who's that?" She didn't answer. Tom, who had wandered over with his morning coffee, muttered under his breath, "Oh, this is beautiful." I handed Karen a printed document. "According to city records, no safety officer has ever been licensed for this property. The signatures on your last 4 reports? Forgeries. You've been filing fraudulent certifications." The color drained from her face. Neighbors began gathering outside, drawn by the parked county vehicles. Phones came out. Whispers spread. I stepped outside and addressed the small crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, your HOA has been operating in violation of state safety law. The board will be issued a corrective order today pending review." Karen lunged forward. "You can't talk to them like that." "You're making us look bad." I met her eyes. "You made yourselves look bad when you lied to everyone about compliance." There was a long, heavy silence. Then, for the first time since I'd moved into this community, I saw Karen speechless. The inspection continued. My team photographed every issue, documented every missing permit. I moved calmly through each room, clipboard steady, the same way I used to walk through fire zones. When we finished, I handed Karen the report. She stared at the stack of papers, trembling slightly. "This is outrageous," she hissed. "You've embarrassed this community." "No," I said. "I protected it." I leaned in slightly so only she could hear. "Next time you want to find someone for a harmless barbecue, make sure your clubhouse isn't a fire trap." She stormed off toward her car, muttering into her phone. Her staff trailed behind, looking like soldiers retreating after a lost battle. Tom grinned beside me. That was better than any 4th of July fireworks. "Justice doesn't always explode," I said quietly. "Sometimes it just lands." We both laughed, watching as the county vans rolled away. But inside, I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the kind to admit defeat, and I had a feeling she'd come back swinging. The next few days felt like calm after a wildfire. Everything looked the same, but the air carried smoke. Karen had gone quiet. Too quiet, no morning patrols, no new letters on doors, no clipboard sightings. For a moment, I wondered if she'd finally accepted defeat. But people like Karen don't go down quietly. They regroup, and I didn't have to wait long to see it. Thursday morning, as I stepped out to grab the paper, a new flyer was taped to my mailbox. Bold red letters screamed across the top, "Emergency HOA meeting, discussing community safety breaches and resident misconduct." At the bottom, "Mandatory attendance, all residents." And right beneath that, in smaller type, "Hosted by President Karen Wallace." Tom whistled when he saw it. "Oh, she's going to try to turn the crowd." "She'll try," I said, folding the flyer. "But she's already lost." The meeting was held that evening in the same clubhouse we'd just cited for fire code violations. Irony at its finest. When I arrived, the parking lot was full. Residents gathered in clusters, murmuring, curious and tense. Inside, the air buzzed with quiet hostility. Karen stood at the front, wearing a sharp red blazer, her usual mask of control back in place. The HOA banner hung behind her like a flag of authority. She spotted me walking in, and that thin smile appeared, the kind that hides a blade. "Ah. Mr. Lawson," she said into the microphone. Our resident firefighter turned inspector. "Glad you could join us." A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. I took a seat near the back. I wanted to hear every word. Karen began her speech with dramatic flair. "In recent days, this community has been subjected to what I can only describe as an overreach by county officials, brought upon us by one resident's personal vendetta." She looked straight at me. "Because of his interference, our HOA has been unfairly targeted, fined, and humiliated. We now face potential insurance penalties, loss of reputation, and, worst of all, division among neighbors." People shifted in their seats. Some nodded. Others frowned. Then she leaned forward, voice trembling with feigned sincerity. We all love this neighborhood. We've worked so hard to keep it beautiful, safe, and peaceful. But one man who couldn't respect our rules, decided to tear it apart. Gasps, murmurs. Tom muttered under his breath beside me. She's good at this. I just folded my arms. Not good enough. When she finally opened the floor, I stood up. Every eye turned toward me. Karen's smile twitched. Go ahead, Mr. Lawson, she said sweetly. You seem to have a lot to say. I walked to the front, slow and steady, feeling that familiar weight in the air, the same one I felt before kicking down a burning door. I took the mic. I didn't bring the county here because of a vendetta, I said, my voice calm but sharp. I brought them here because this HOA has been lying to every single person in this room. A ripple moved through the crowd. Those inspection reports you paid for? Fake. Those funds for safety improvements? Misused. The clubhouse you're sitting in? Technically condemned until repairs are made. Karen tried to cut in. That's not true. I turned to her. Then show them the real inspection certificates. She froze. You can't because they don't exist, I continued. Your HOA's been collecting fees, forging reports, and pretending it was all for our safety. The county didn't embarrass this community. You did. Silence. Then Mrs. Diaz, the same woman Karen fined for her rose colors, stood up. Is that true, Karen? Did you fake those inspections? Karen's voice cracked. I trusted our previous contractors, but nobody bought it. Tom called out, You signed the forms, Karen? The crowd erupted, not in anger at me, but at her. Years of quiet resentment spilled out all at once. People shouted about fines, intimidation, double standards. Karen tried to regain control, banging the gavel. This is out of order. But the room was no longer hers. I stepped back and let the truth burn through the space like oxygen hitting flame. By the end of the night, a motion had been called. A new election for HOA leadership. Karen stood rigid, watching as one neighbor after another raised their hands in favor. Her empire, her clipboard kingdom, crumbled in real time. When the vote was tallied, the numbers were decisive. Karen Wallace was officially removed as HOA President. She stormed out of the clubhouse without a word. Tom clapped me on the back as people cheered. You did it, man. Justice. Suburban edition. I smiled faintly. Justice isn't about winning. It's about balance. Outside, the night was quiet again. The streetlights reflected off wet pavement. The world calm and bright. I looked back at the clubhouse, at the neighbors still talking inside. And for the first time since moving here, I felt something real, community. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't done. People like her never walk away without trying to take one last swing, and I was ready for it. For a few days after the vote, peace returned to Maple Crescent. Neighbors started greeting each other again. The fences didn't feel like borders anymore. Someone even suggested a community cleanup weekend. Ironic, considering how the real mess had just been taken out. But I knew Karen too well. She wasn't the type to vanish quietly. And sure enough, by Friday night, her shadow returned. It started small. Emails, anonymous. Ones, sent to residents claiming I had connections in the county. Office that made the audit illegal. Then, a rumor spread that I'd blackmailed the city into ousting the HOA board. Classic Karen tactics. Twist the truth until it breaks. Tom texted me screenshots. She's at it again. Same old script, different lies, I sighed. Let her run her show. The truth's got longer legs. Still, I wasn't naive. I'd seen people like her before. Pride mixed with desperation is a dangerous thing, and she was about to prove it. Sunday morning, around 6:15, I woke up to the sound of a truck outside. I opened my blinds and froze. Two men in plain clothes were unloading boxes onto my front lawn. Large cardboard boxes labeled illegal material, property of county fire office. I threw on my jacket and walked outside.
Hey, I called out.
What are you doing? One guy looked startled. We're just dropping this off for Karen Wallace. I frowned. Karen doesn't live here, he scratched his head. She said this was your address. She paid us cash to deliver it here before sunrise. Tom, already walking his dog, came over. That woman's insane. I opened one of the boxes. Inside were old, discarded fire extinguishers, broken alarms, and inspection tags, all county property. It hit me instantly. She was framing me. If someone called the county right now and claimed I'd stolen equipment, it'd look bad, even for a retired marshal. But what Karen didn't know was that I had cameras. By 7:30, I'd reviewed the footage. 2 men, unmarked truck, boxes labeled exactly as described. The timestamp matched. I called the county's internal affairs office. "This is Lawson," I said calmly. "I believe someone's attempting to frame me for theft of departmental materials. I have video evidence of a drop-off made under false pretenses. They took it seriously. Within hours, an investigator named Reynolds showed up at my house. We reviewed the footage together." He whistled. "That's bold. Who do you think's behind it?" I slid a photo across the table. Karen Wallace's HOA headshot. He raised an eyebrow. "She doesn't give up easy, huh?" "Not until she's taught why she should." By Monday morning, Reynolds had traced the truck. It was rented under a fake name, but the payment came from Karen's personal card. She'd been sloppy. Anger makes people stupid. They filed charges for attempted falsification of evidence and defamation. I didn't hear from Karen again, not directly, but I saw her face one last time. A week later, as I left the grocery store, I spotted her in the parking lot, sitting in her car, staring straight ahead. No makeup, no clipboard, no audience. For the first time, she looked small. Our eyes met through the windshield. She didn't speak. She just turned the key, reversed, and drove away. That night, Tom and a few neighbors came over for a proper barbecue, the same kind she once called non-compliant. The smell of smoked ribs drifted through the air. Laughter echoed down the street. Emma ran through the yard with sparklers, her laughter brighter than the sparks. Tom raised his glass. "To justice, HOA style," I chuckled. "No, to peace, finally," he grinned. "Same thing, brother." As the sun set over the perfect suburban street, I sat back in my chair, watching the sky fade to gold. For months, I'd fought lies, fines, and false power. But tonight, it was simple again. Community, laughter, and calm. In the end, the HOA didn't just lose a tyrant. We found something better, each other, and as the last embers glowed in the grill, I thought about the irony. Sometimes justice doesn't need a badge or a courtroom. Sometimes it just needs a man who refuses to bow to a bully, and a neighborhood willing to stand behind him. It's been 6 months since that final night. The neighborhood looks different now, not in structure, but in spirit. The HOA sign out front still reads, Maple Crescent Community, but below it, a new plaque gleams in silver letters, for the people. By the people, founded on integrity. It wasn't my idea, it was Mrs. Diaz's. She said we needed to remind ourselves why we fought back. I didn't argue. Karen's name still comes up sometimes, usually in whispers. Nobody's seen her since the charges. The county confirmed what we already knew. She'd been fabricating inspection records for nearly 3 years and diverting HOA maintenance funds into a private account. When her hearing came, I didn't attend. I didn't need to. Justice didn't require my presence anymore. It had its own momentum now. She pled guilty to falsifying documents and was sentenced to community service, fittingly, at the city's fire safety division. Sometimes life has a strange sense of humor. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address. The handwriting was unmistakable. Lawson, I lost everything. My title, my home, my reputation. But after all this time, I realize I deserved it. You didn't humiliate me. I did that myself. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it. You were right about one thing. Real power doesn't announce itself. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and tucked it into my desk drawer. Forgiveness isn't something you plan. It's something that sneaks up on you when anger finally runs out of room. Maple Crescent is quiet these days, the kind of quiet that feels earned. The new HOA board runs open meetings. Budgets are transparent. The clubhouse got its long overdue safety upgrades. And yes, we still have barbecues, big ones every month. Tom always insists on being the grill master, though half the time he burns the burgers. Nobody cares. It's about showing we can laugh again. Emma's older now, always reminding me, Dad, we beat the HOA. I laugh every time. We didn't beat the HOA, kiddo. We just made it ours again. Last week, I sat out on the porch as dusk settled over the neighborhood. The air smelled of pine and distant smoke. I could hear faint music from someone's backyard, kids laughing, sprinklers ticking, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely still. Justice doesn't always arrive in sirens or courtroom verdicts. Sometimes it comes in the shape of a quiet evening, in a community that finally breathes free again. I leaned back in my chair, looked out over the lawns and smiled to myself. Justice echo, I whispered under my breath. That's what it was all along. One voice standing up until others finally heard it. And somewhere deep inside, that echo lingered, steady, strong, and true.